Daft Punk's Random Access Memories was released in 2013, and in 2021, they announced that they had disbanded. But listening through this album, it's clear that this was always going to be their last album. While their 2001 album Discovery has a ton of samples and comes to a head on the song Face to Face, where they're essentially playing like 8 different samples as its own instrument, Random Access Memories mirrors that with Daft Punk sampling humans. I know that sampling humans sounds like a horror movie, but stick with me. We're gonna unpack this entire album, all 14 tracks. Yes, 14. There's a bonus track you may not have heard, and see how this album is a masterpiece about love, music, humanity, robots, and Daft Punk looking back on their career and then blasting off into new horizons. Some of you got that. For the rest of you, you'll get it in a minute. Take a seat, relax. We've got a lot to talk about. Let's start from the top. All right, here we go. You know what? I'm sorry to do this. Right from the top, this is crazy. This doesn't sound like Daft Punk. Daft Punk is house, they're electronic, they got drum machines, they dress like robots. This isn't robot music though, this is human music. And this is an idea that the album plays with, and that's why this album is so amazing. In the opening of this song, we get a little bit of everything we're about to hear on the album. We got funky guitar from Nile Rodgers, you know, Good Times by Chic, that's him. We got acoustic drums by John J.R. Robinson. You know, Rock With You, boom, flakataka boom, the opening fill, that's him. We got Nathan East on bass, Paul Jackson Jr., legends. And with all of this, we've got a robotic sounding vocoder. So we know it's still Daft Punk, but why do they have these studio legends on this album? They're an electronic duo, right? Alright, 2 things before we go any further that'll help explain the album. Daft Punk dresses like robots. Sorry, they are robots. It's part of the mythology around the group. Supposedly on September 9th, 1999, there was an accident in the studio and they were turned into robots. Just go with it, alright? This robot versus human thing is an idea they've played with many times before, like their previous studio album, Human After All, which we'll talk about more in a second, but just, they're robots, alright? Got it? Second thing is this. Daft Punk have a deep love for 70s and 80s music. Their album Discovery uses extensive sampling of 70s and 80s records, and for Daft Punk, these records were magic. As Thomas, the silver robot, explained, the idea was really having this desire for live drums, as well as questioning, really, why and what is the magic in samples? Why for the last 20 years have producers and musicians been extracting these little snippets of audio from vinyl records? What kind of magic did it contain? So Daft Punk decided to recreate some of this magic themselves by bringing in huge studio musicians like Nile Rodgers, JR, Nathan East, and many more. They recorded in studios like Capitol, Electric Lady, Henson, and Conway because they felt that these places themselves were magical. The recording budget for this album was reportedly over $1 million. The whole idea was to recreate the magic of the music they loved and loved to sample. And here's the best part. On Random Access Memories, they're not sampling records, they're sampling humans. Omar Hakim is a legendary drummer who has worked with Bowie, Sting, Madonna, and so many more that I can't list right now, but he played on half the album and he said how strange the recording process was.
So the session wasn't a typical recording session, because normally in a recording session you go in the studio, you learn a song and you play it from top to bottom. But what they were doing was they were showing me these kind of riff ideas that were only 4 bars or 8 bars long, and then they wanted to jam on them for like 5-10 minutes. And so it was like a live sampling session, really. So basically I didn't know what the record was going to sound like, because all I would do was play 5 minutes of one concept. And we did this for a week. So there was tons of material that was created.
Thomas explained this idea in an interview with Rolling Stone. We wanted to do what we used to do with machines and samplers, but with people. Sampling humans. What an incredible way to make an album. Instead of sampling records from the 70s and 80s, get the guys who played a bunch of that stuff, bring them in and just have them play a ton of material, and then sample that however you want. Unreal. The lyric is, "Let the music of your life bring life back to music," and that's exactly what Daft Punk are doing with this song and album. Let's keep going. Alright, track 2, The Game of Love. This is a much slower song with a robotic voice, but it's made to sound much more human. A little behind the scenes fact right now, I'm using Serato 3.0 with the stems feature that automatically detect the vocal, the harmonic instruments, the bass, the drums, etc. On the previous track, when I isolate vocal, there's nothing because it thinks that that vocal is part of the instruments. But on this one, I isolate the vocal, and there it is. So it sounds much more human. All throughout the album, we have this push and pull of what I'm gonna call human instruments and robot instruments. By human instruments, I mean the acoustic drums, bass guitar, Rhodes, natural human voice, and by robot instruments, I mean the robotic vocoder voice and the pulsing synths. On the first song, we had all human instruments and the robot voice on top, but on this song, the voice doesn't sound as robotic. The specific sound of the vocoders used on this album took weeks to get right, and that's because they used them very intentionally. Thomas explained, "There's this thing today where the recorded human voice is processed to try to feel robotic. Here we were trying to make robotic voices sound the most human they've ever sounded in terms of expressivity and emotion." But what is The Game of Love? This song feels like a response to Digital Love off of Discovery. That's a fun love song, very upbeat, and has the narrator in love with someone and wanting them to play the game of love with the repeating phrase, "Why don't you play the game?" Well, now they've played the game and it didn't work out. They're heartbroken, and it's not just the lyrics that mirror each other here. Listen to the beginning of the solo on Digital Love. The line is ascending. It's very excited at the possibility of love. Right? Now listen to the beginning of the solo on Game of Love. The line is descending, and rhythmically it's kind of stumbling downward. It didn't work out. But again, what is The Game of Love? Alright, maybe I'm digging too deep here, but here we go. Their album from 2001, Discovery, landmark album, extensive sampling mixed with electronic production. Their next album, 2005's Human After All. It's an ironic title because it's only got one sample in it and it's very robot sounding. The production is simpler and they made it in a much shorter amount of time. It was also less well received than Discovery. Thomas described Human After All as a extremely tormented and sad and terrifying looks at technology, yet there can be some beauty and emoting from it. So maybe the game we're talking about is going full robot. When you're in a romantic relationship, you're putting yourself out there, being vulnerable, going full robot, revealing who you are, and in this case, the relationship or the terrifyingly all robot album didn't work out. Maybe. But if you are a robot, you can't change that, so where do you fit in? Let's keep going. Giorgio Moroder is an electronic dance music pioneer, so he was excited when he got the call to work with Daft Punk, but it was in a very unusual way. They didn't want him to help on a song directly. They asked him to sit in the studio and just tell his life story. Giorgio talked for a couple of hours about his life, and it was recorded with 3 mics in the room from different decades. So when you hear him on the track talking about a certain time period, a mic from that decade is being used. While Giorgio Moroder is talking, Daft Punk are scoring his story. They had recently scored the movie Tron Legacy, so presumably they were real comfortable doing this. But go back and listen to this because it's incredible. As he's talking, it's a very 70s groove underneath, all 70s human instruments, and then he begins to talk about the Donna Summer album, I Remember Yesterday, which he produced. The concept of that album was to combine the most recent disco sound of 1977 with sounds from the past and imagine what the sound of the future would be like through synthesizers. When Giorgio mentions the click track, the score underneath follows suit. And then when he says his name, it's all robot instruments after that. Watch this. Giovanni Giorgio. Right? It's a nod to the Donna Summer album with the sequence 16th notes on the synths. And then it breaks down to Giorgio again, who says,
"Once you free your mind about the concept of harmony and of music being correct, you can do whatever you want."
And then the music immediately shifts to all live orchestra. They're taking his advice. You can do whatever you want. Then everything joins in together, the acoustic drums and other natural instruments, and also the 16th note pulsing synth. Thematically for the album, this song is, it's telling a part of music history directly with Giorgio Moroder, but it also seems to be hinting at how Daft Punk see themselves. a mix of the human and robotic, the orchestra and the Moog modular. They are robots, but they're longing for more. They make electronic music, but they want to do more than just that. And just like the Donna Summer album, they're mixing the sound of the past with the sound of the future. But they seem to be unsure of this balance. They want to bring life back to music, track 1. They tried playing the game of love, or music, and it didn't work out, track 2. So they're talking to a musical legend who advises them to let go and don't worry about what's correct. Sounds like they need to do some self-exploration and find out what they want within. Oh, wouldn't you know it? That's the next track. This is a slow, beautiful ballad opening with an incredible sounding piano. We've got more human instruments, but the robot voice is back saying there's a world within him that he can't explain. He says there's too many rooms to explore, but the doors look the same, and begging, please tell me who I am. The voice is a vocoder, but it's incredibly expressive. Like if on the first track the vocoder is a blend of 20% human and 80% robot, this song feels like 40-60. They're playing with this human-robot balance again. This continues on the next track, Instant Crush. Here we get the first human singing voice on the record via Julian Casablancas from The Strokes, but it's more robotic sounding than his normal voice. Like if the last song was 60% robot, 40% human, this is like 60% human, 40% robot. This song feels like it's about closure after a breakup. Heartbreak, but they've chained themselves to a friend, cause I know it unlocks like a door, referencing the doors within in the previous song. So closure after a breakup or a romantic relationship, or closure after a previous album? Maybe. Look, don't mishear me. I don't hate Human after all, but what Daft Punk are doing with Random Access Memories on a scale this large, this many musicians, this gigantic ode to all music, it's like they're searching for their place in music. Do they belong in the world of studio musicians and the musical legends who made the music they love and love to sample? Do they belong in the world of Giorgio Moroder and other electronic music legends? Something to think about and figure out. For now, though, they just need to lose themselves to dance. Our narrator, or Daft Punk, are losing themselves by dancing. Pharrell Williams is on this, and it's the first time on the album that we hear a fully human voice. I mean, Nile Rodgers is on this as well. Here's his guitar right here. That's JR on drums, and we got Nathan East on bass as well. The only robot music part of this song is the Come On robotic voice, which is much more robotic sounding. These voices build into a choir weaving in and out. The groove feels particularly human. It's not perfectly locked to the grid. The whole thing is a little looser. It feels like a robot went back in time to a dance club in the 70s, and even though he doesn't technically belong there, he's fitting in perfectly. This is a turning point in the album. It feels like it's the next morning. The beginning feels like waking up to a new day after dancing the night away. The whole thing is very dreamy. The robot voice comes in and sounds like a robot's hard drive brain waking up and regaining consciousness. Then it snaps out of it, and it's Paul Williams' natural voice. Paul Williams, of course, legendary songwriter who wrote many huge hits in the 70s. Lyrics like, "Tell me what you see, I need something more, where do I belong," and "room behind a room, door behind a door." We're keeping the door metaphor going. The robot narrator, our stand-in for Daft Punk, is still wondering where they fit into everything, but this song feels not like sadness from a few tracks ago, more like deep longing for finding your place. Then it goes into this incredible 70s sounding interlude with strings and horns. This slows down and introduces a vocoder choir, which is then joined by a human choir and repeats the phrase, "If love is the answer, you're home." This continues, and then the bottom drops out and it evaporates into these beautiful synths. Feels like everything's gonna be okay. Love or music is still the answer. You're home. It's all gonna be okay. Guy Manuel, the gold robot, stated that touch is like the core of the record and the memories of the other tracks are revolving around it. It continues with a crazy mix of human music and robot music swirling around each other. Daft Punk has said this is the most complex track on the album with over 250 elements. Then it breaks all the way down to Paul Williams again, who says, "Touch, sweet touch, you've given me too much to feel. Almost convinced me I'm real. I need something more." The ending chord is so beautiful. It's just this hopeful tension. It's incredible. This gives way to the biggest hit from the album. Now, you've probably heard this song 1,000 times. It was a huge hit and played everywhere for years. But in the context of the rest of the album, I see it in a brand new way. The opening line, "Like the legend of the Phoenix, all ends with beginnings." In the context of the album, our robot narrator is back in this 70s dance club where he doesn't belong, but he doesn't care. He's ready to love again. He's found the place where he's meant to be. Pharrell has said that this song isn't just about hooking up, it's about that moment when you have a real connection with someone. We've come too far to give up who we are. I mean, who are we? Daft Punk, the robots, the drum machines, the synths, they're not giving that up. In fact, it's the opposite. Let's raise the bar and our cups to the stars. That's exactly what they're doing with this album, is raising the bar. And the stars, man, just wait, because there's more space stuff coming at the end of the album. Musically, it's that 70s dance club again, like on Lose Yourself to Dance. It's all human instruments. Then you got the robot voice in there also working in tandem. They sing together with the rest of the humans. They don't have to be something else. Daft Punk, or our robot narrator, have finally found love. They've found their musical place where they can open up, be vulnerable, and be themselves. The orchestra is back. Just like when Giorgio said to let go earlier in the album. This gives way to a groove that sounds a lot like Michael McDonald's I Keep Forgetting. Lyrically, it's talking about love and music, building on themes from previous songs. The future possibilities are endless. The pivotal lyric here is this: "There's no such thing as competition. To find our way, we lose control. Remember, love's our only mission. This is a journey of the soul." To find our way, we lose control. You just gotta let go and go with it. This is an instrumental song that musically, I mean, this part, the woodwinds, it reminds me of Steve Reich's Music for 18 Musicians, which feels like an orchestral version of electronic music that was written and premiered in, you guessed it, the 1970s. The constant 16th note pulses on Motherboard feel like something you'd get out of a sequence synth, but this is being played by human instruments. And then about halfway through, it morphs around with this liquid sounding effect. Then out of that comes this same pulsing 16th note kind of thing, but with the robot instruments. The human instruments then join in after. This one features Todd Edwards, who's an electronic producer and artist in his own right, but was also featured on the song Face to Face off of Discovery. And on both that song and this song, he co-produced it. This song is from Todd Edwards' perspective. Lyrically, he's talking about the recording process of this album. The only plan is to improvise. In fact, on the 10th anniversary edition of this album, which was just recently released, there's a making of track where Todd Edwards says how emotional it is to record these lyrics because it's been such an amazing time working with them. Check it out.
Familiar faces I've never seen.
Familiar, but you've never seen their faces. The helmets.
Living the gold and the silver dream.
Gold and silver. Oh, right, the helmets. We're talking about Daft Punk.
Making me feel like I'm 17.
Yeah, sure, nostalgia.
And it's crystal clear that I don't ever want it to end.
Me neither, Todd.
If I had my way, I would never leave.
Well, I mean, they're renting the studio, so...
Keep building these random memories.
Oh, right, the name of the album. So, Random Access Memory, aka RAM, is computer memory. And then we got memories like in a brain. Robots and humans, man, that's the whole thing, the whole album.
Turning our days into melodies.
Turning our days into melodies? That's called songwriting.
But since I can't stay,
Yeah, you can't stay. I mean, there's another band coming in at like 2.
I'll just keep playing back these fragments of time.
AKA all the songs on the album and Face to Face and all the stuff they've done together. Musically too, this song reminds me of What a Fool Believes by the Doobie Brothers, but like with a crazy robot vocoder solo at the end. This song is Todd Edwards saying how much he loves Daft Punk, but it also has a last day of school vibe to it. Like, we had so much fun, now I'm not gonna see you for a while and I don't wanna be sad about it, so I'll just hold on to these fragments of time. Alright, let's get the giant parachute thing and get out of here. But where is Daft Punk going? This song features Panda Bear, the artist, not the animal. On this song, we're back to all robotic instruments. We got the drum machine, and we got the straight up robot voice telling us everybody will be dancing and doing it right, etc. Panda Bear comes in with the additional human vocals on top. The pivotal lyric here is this: if you lose your way tonight, that's how you know the magic's right. This whole album has been about letting go. Letting go of your expectations, the pressure to be something different than what you are, and even the well-intentioned attempt to make yourself fit somewhere. Just go with it, dance, loosen up, let love in, let music in. That's how you know the magic is right. Daft Punk have found the magic of those 70s and 80s records, and they've recreated that magic, but in their own robotic, human sampling way. They brought in some incredible, legendary musicians who played on these records that they love, let them do their thing, and then sampled the hell out of it, combining it with their own vocoders, synths, and drum machines to create an incredible album that's a fusion of human music and robot music, in a way that only Daft Punk could do. They finally found it, and they're doing it right. There's just one more thing left to do. Say goodbye. This is the last song on the album. Shh, there's actually one more. And man, this is how you end an album like this. While Discovery used a ton of samples from records, Random Access Memories has only sampled humans. That is until Contact. It's like they've returned to their record sampling roots on their way out the door. We have two samples on this song. One is We Ride Tonight by the Sherbs from 1982, which gives us the intro, and the other is a sample of the audio transmission from the Apollo 17 mission in 1972. On this mission, astronauts reported a strange phenomenon. They would close their eyes and still see flashing lights. This is a very strange phenomenon and a perfect way to end this album because it feels like the robots are now leaving Earth. By the way, those astronauts did tests where they would wear this special AlfMed helmet and try to capture the light. But just take a look at what these things look like. My guy looks like the Wish version of Daft Punk. Anyway, this song is Daft Punk saying goodbye and leaving Earth. After the intro, it's an insane rocket launch. Musicians are going crazy, loud, rising tones, pulsing 16th note synths, human and robot instruments working together. They're pulling out all the stops. You cannot get any bigger than this. I'm not even gonna play you a clip from this one because you need to be sitting down. Near the end of the track, it feels like they've left our solar system or our dimension. And then we get to the bonus track. This was only included on the CD release in Japan, but it's now available to stream on the 10th anniversary edition of Random Access Memories. The acoustic guitar at the top sounds very much to me like Bowie's Space Oddity. You know, Ground Control to Major Tom. But then the rest of it feels like they're floating off into space into new horizons. The robots have done what they came to do, and now it's time for them to move on. The rest of the song morphs all over the place between human instruments and robot instruments. If the previous song, Contact, was the violent launch out of the solar system, Horizon is the shot of the spacecraft slowly moving towards the next horizon. Now again, they're robots, right? Well, now that Daft Punk has disbanded, Thomas gave an interview with the BBC for the 10th anniversary release, and when asked about the progression of technology and specifically AI since the album was released, Thomas said, "I almost consider the character of the robots like a Marina Abramovic performance art installation that lasted for 20 years. We tried to use these machines to express something extremely moving that a machine cannot feel, but a human can. We were always on the side of humanity and not on the side of technology. As much as I love this character, the last thing I would want to be in the world we live in 2023 is a robot." Random Access Memories explores what it means to be human and fit in, looking through the past, the present, and the future, all through the eyes of a robot. It's robots making art about what it means to be human. It's electronic musicians using traditional studio musicians to make one of the most profoundly musical albums in a very unique way. human sampling. While their previous studio album, Human After All, contains only one sample, Discovery from 2001 uses not only many different samples, but many different sampling techniques. I recently recreated several of these songs from Discovery, and man, the whole thing is a masterclass in electronic sampling, culminating with a collaboration with Todd Edwards that's the climax of the album. But to dive into that album, you gotta click here.